Another Founder Wisdom Pod AI edition with a really interesting founder today, Ravin Thambapillai. He is
Love it.
co-founder at Credal AI, and he's in a Lake Michigan or somewhere up there retreat with his friends. So we got the opportunity to know each other in this short 15 minutes, and I was like, why not record? Because Ravin is quite interesting. He's an ex-Palantir, one of the companies I'm not sure if love would be the best word, but I'd love the business aspect of Palantir, and the
Yeah.
vision is really cool. And Peter Thiel, yeah, mostly love the guy, like 90%. Great
His character.
entrepreneur, yeah, great contrarian thinker. I've obviously followed the premise of his book Zero to One since I started this entrepreneurial career. But yeah, obviously these powerful companies, they look small, by the way, like on the front end, but I think they can become the most powerful companies in the world. They need to be maintained in check, including Angelo. By the way, also shout out to Palmer. He's amazing founder. Ravin, welcome to the pod. Weird introduction, but tell us a bit more about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Ravin. I'm the CEO of Credal AI. Credal's a information security company for large language models. So enterprises, typically 1,000 plus people, will use us so as a gateway between their employees and all the different AI applications, foundation models, and like internal tools that they want to use. So we kind of are a place for those companies to integrate all of their data, and then their employees can kind of chat with that data, or they can build applications, that LLM applications that use that data in a way that actually respects all of the permissions set up in those underlying source systems like Google Drive, Microsoft Office, Salesforce, etc. It automatically masks any PII or sensitive information that they might have. And it also automatically enforces their acceptable use policies. So, if you're a European company, you have to comply with the EU AI Act. So you might have an acceptable use policy that says don't use AI to make hiring decisions. If someone's trying to do that with like a CV that they were sent, we'll automatically detect that and alert the user like, hey, this looks like it's out of compliance with this policy that the company has. And that's what we do. Jack and I actually started Credal a little while ago at this point. We started it in October of last year, which in the terms of our industry is like 10,000 years, right? But obviously it's not actually that long. But when we initially started Credal, we had a slightly different vision, which is that we would be a place where companies would be able to integrate their data and use these large language models to sort of act as a kind of strategic decision-making assistant, or like a chief of staff almost. And what we quickly found, like building that product out, was that, because Jack and I were obsessed with security, having, come from Palantir, we built all of these security features. And yeah, a lot of the companies and customers we were speaking to were like, yeah, this product is cool, but those security features are really cool. Tell me about that, because I want that in every single product I use. And that's how we sort of realized, like, oh, actually the security story that we've built is potentially even bigger than the specific application. And so we really doubled down on doing that. And, that's where we really found, the growth that we've seen since.
So I think there's like two aspects here, and I want to explore both with you. But the first is, if I'm this big company and I give all this data to GPT and OpenAI, I might have a competitive problem. They might like pull the plug on me and just take all the data. That's one. And the second one is, if OpenAI gets hacked, or anyone like in their API man in the middle or whatever, if there's like a security breach, my whole data can go to shit. So are these two valid problems right there?
Yeah, I mean, those are definitely things that our customers are thinking about. I think, one of the things that's changed actually is, like, since we started, when we started Credal, OpenAI were like openly training on any data that they were sent. Like, there was no like policy around that. Since then, companies like us started really pushing them to be like, hey, you guys need to take security seriously, because enterprises will never use you otherwise. And since then, they've gotten a little bit more mature about that, I will say, like, as have all the other foundation models. But at the end of the day, enterprises need two things to be willing to use basically any software, but LLMs in particular. One is visibility and the other is control, right? And so that's what we provide, like the ability to get visibility into not just OpenAI, but any of these like AI tools that you use, because people don't just want to use chat, right? They want to use the sales assistant and the marketing assistant and the engineering copilot. And so you want visibility and control, not just across OpenAI, but across all of the different AI tools that you're using to say, okay, what are people using? What data is going to whom? How can I put controls on what data can be used by whom and can be sent to whom?
What would be the business model here? I mean, you guys went to YC. Good job. You
Yep.
got funded by Spark and this other VC that I forgot the name of. So congrats on that. How will you make money with that? Is it like per API call?
Yeah, so we have a sort of three-part contractual system. There's a license fee for the product, and that works on a per user basis. So depending on how many of your employees or developers are using the product. Then there is a per API call fee as well. And in some of the bigger instances, we also have like an implementation fee. If there's like a particularly complex deployment story or a particularly complex data integration that they want to use, like a custom data source that they have, then we'll charge some kind of setup fee for that as well. But those are the three models, and most of the revenue actually comes from the license fee, and then there's a little bit on top for the API costs and the implementation fees.
Tell me about your background at Palantir. I started this pod saying that, it's an amazing company, like from a business perspective. I think their cause is somewhat noble as well, just to defend people. And if you ask me, like, if I'm more US and NATO or Russian, well, you obviously know my answer. I'm all about freedom, democracy, and yeah, letting people live their lives, and not intervene in theirs and try to bully people. But I still think these companies need to be maintained and checked. Imagine if
Yeah.
like there's an AI in the back end and these companies can truly scale. It's not going to be like the classic Lockheed Martin building missiles, but like truly scaling an AI that can hurt at scale or can go
Yep.
out of control. So what do you think about these things?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's sort of two questions there, right? The one question is, okay, there's a set of companies, and you name checked Anduril earlier, Palantir is another one. I think there are others also where, you know, they're not necessarily companies that we're always talking about from the perspective of like, what are the regulations that should apply? What are the rules that should apply to these companies? But they're enormously significant to our way of life, right? Palantir works with, so many national governments, not just the US government. It's, very involved with the UK government. It works with the NHS. It works with the, UK defense folks. Its technological significance far outweighs, honestly, its like commercial value. And I think there's a very, very important question about what processes do we have in place that govern like the influence that those relationships create. I think, from my perspective, I always found the reputation of Palantir a little bit baffling. Like, I worked there for a really long time. I was there from 2015 all the way through till 2022, so 7.5 years. And during that time, I had a lot of people talk about, Palantir is an evil company because, it, works with ICE or whatever. And I never fully understood that. For context, my whole family are refugees. They fled from the war in Sri Lanka. I was born in Australia, like during that time, like just after they left. Their house was burnt down in Sri Lanka. They eventually made it out to the UK. And so, the question of how countries and nations treat immigrants and refugees is like very, very personal for me. People talk a lot about the work that Palantir did with ICE. They don't talk about some of the work that I personally was involved with at Palantir in Syria, helping, internally displaced people in Syria escape from ISIS and from Assad and get resettled in, safer nations. So I do, I saw and frankly, like did a lot of work that I felt was like very, very good. and I'm like very proud to have done. And yes, it's true, like Palantir work with ICE, but it's really complicated to say that just because ICE have a contract with Palantir that the entire company is evil as a result of that, right? Is that true for every person who, was involved in making Microsoft Word? If Microsoft Word is used at ICE, is it all of those people therefore evil? That's a pretty strange
Yeah.
conclusion to me. But I do agree that the influence and importance of these technology companies is extremely high, and that we haven't really figured out as a society yet how we govern and control. And honestly, the most important thing is provide visibility into that, right? Like actually making people understand, like, hey, if this technology company goes bankrupt, or if this technology company decides to pull its contract, like we might lose the war in Ukraine, right? And what is the implication of that to the relationship between the people of the United States and the 10 or so people that own 50% of Palantir?
Yeah, true. I mean, fog of war is one
Right.
keyword that comes to mind every time. And or on your LinkedIn profile, there's the COVID vaccines, right? And there's a bunch of anti-vaxxers out there. Um,
Yeah.
it's always mixed feeling. Every time you talk about life and death, there's gonna be emotions, and emotions usually they blur the conversation.
Yeah.
Um, Me, I've had, like I'm not necessarily for the vaccine. I'm a biohacker, but I had countless of folks that I talked to and almost died from COVID. I heard
Yeah.
about many deaths of COVID. This shit is serious. So um, every time that you bring up that convo, you'll get pros and cons. Now, Peter Thiel's amazing founder. It's just that, yeah, EQ wise, not sure. It's like, I guess that's one doubt that people have. The ICE thing, yeah, like it's immigration's another like tough topic, right? Like
Right.
I do want to bring a solution to that one because I'm in Mexico right now, and I think
Right.
if we just educate people that if you have a laptop and you stay in Mexico, you can make crap tons of money. You
Right.
don't necessarily need to cross the border. And guess what? Being in a house in Mexico is safe.
Right.
It's not like
Right.
how people think. Um, I want to ask you though, like you're in security, you're in AI. A lot of people talk about the bullshit like stop it all button or like pulling the plug on
Right.
AI. What are your predictions with AI in the future? Because we only have like 1 or 2 minutes left here. Um, what do you think will happen 5 to 10 years from now with AI? And as a security guy, what would be measures of security or the best course of action we could take to not have an AGI blow us up?
Yeah, I mean, concretely, I think we're very far away from AGI, right? Like, it's not a question of like, the software engineers just need to do a little bit more work and they'll figure it out. It's like we need like multiple scientific breakthroughs before AGI could happen. And like it's impossible to predict when those will happen, just as it's impossible for us to predict like when Newton first discovered like, classical mechanics, it was impossible to predict how long it would be until relativity was discovered. Like that's the exact same situation we're in right now with like current AI versus when we'll get AGI. Like it could be 200 years, it could be like 10 years. Like nobody knows. In terms of like what we actually need to do about today's technology, like the real stuff that we have in place, honestly, there's nothing more valuable than just putting it in people's hands in contexts where it's in control, like people are in control, and being able to understand and learn about how the technology works. I think there are specific examples where I've seen like people suddenly realize like stuff about the like how the actual technology works that makes them much more safe and secure in how they use it. I think one of the really good examples of this is like stop sequences. When you like see a developer learn how like stop sequences control like what the model's output is, like they get much better intuitions for what the model is doing under the hood, and then they're able to design much more like safe and secure systems as a result of that. So just like putting the tech in people's hands in a way that's safe is like, or in a way that's like in a box and controlled, is like easily the like most important step for educating people.
I also, so I would agree with your AGI predictions with the multiple breakthroughs. think these can happen pretty fast if you put like a bunch of brains in one room. They're like miracles creators, very smart folks, especially if they work together under a great leadership like we've seen at OpenAI. That being said, I don't think we even need AGI to disbalance this world. I think like the next big thing will be agents that you deploy. You know, I have a VA right now, and I think that an AI could do it like a better job, to be frank. Even with the current technology, I just
Right.
needed to give it my accounts and my permissions, right? I just need to log in and tell and sign the legal stuff saying that if they fuck up, then it's on me. How far are we away from this? You know, like me deploying a bunch of agents, one for sales, one for marketing. I was about to say one for HR, but no, not for HR because I wouldn't
Yeah.
need more HR. One for legal and one
Right.
for product. Let's say, how far are we away from that?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like fully autonomous agents that like need no supervision, I honestly think we're still quite far away from that. In terms of agents that like assist you and like make you much more effective, we're not like that's today, you know, that's like literally happening already. You see in that, you know, if you look at the YC startups in my batch, like all of those companies are like loaded up on these AI tools, right? There's the finance AI tool that does their like bookkeeping for them. And then there's the like, you know, Jasper AI that writes the blog post, whatever. And obviously, like those tools are not fully autonomous, right? They are taking the first draft, maybe even like doing the second draft, doing some editing. But they're still fundamentally under the supervision of a human. They're doing maybe like reducing somewhere between, let's say, 30% of the work in Copilot's case to like 60% of the work in Jasper's case. But you know, the 100% thing, even for like relatively narrow domains. Maybe the EA example is like an example where we might be closer, but for anything where like it really requires like someone with like a very switched on brain to get it right, you know, I think we're still a little bit away from that. And honestly, even in the EA case, really good EAs are like really smart, right? And yeah, you're not going to replace that with ChatGPT for years, I don't think.
Interesting. Well, Ravin, thank you for coming in today. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, you can look us up on the web on our website, Credal, Credal.ai. And feel free to follow us on LinkedIn or Twitter, where we talk about security and what our customers, the amazing things our customers are doing with AI today.
And I'm Charles Cormier, host at founderwisdompodcast.com. That was Ravin Thambapillai.